thank you for choosing Alternatives, a public access forum for expressing views and topics rich with the flavor of nonconformity. I'm Al DiGiacomo, and with us now is Pat DiNizio. Many may know Pat as the founder and songwriter of the award-winning concert and recording artist, The Smithereens. From an early age, Pat has been interested in politics, serving as a two-term Republican committee chairman in Scotch Plains when he was just 18 years old. This, of course, before following his first love of music. And now, after 20 successful years in the rough and tumble of the music industry, Pat DiNizio is a New Jersey candidate for the U.S. Senate. Pat intends to use music to inspire and educate the young while re-energizing and reminding the rest of us what America was, is, and can be once again. And why a DiNizio rock politics Jersey style in November could be good for the people of the Garden State. Pat, welcome to Alternatives.
Hi, Al.
Pat, let's start off with whatever inspired you to run for the U.S. Senate?
You know, one of my early aspirations was public service. I mean, that's why I got involved with Republican Party politics back in the old days when I was a kid, back in the 70s. My mom had sort of been a mover and shaker in local government. And I saw it, and I wanted to get involved at that point, but I was too young. You know, I didn't have the proper amount of empathy for people or the right amount of life experience to really be that concerned for anyone other than myself at that point. And I really wanted to pursue music, so I was involved with the political thing with the Republican Party for 2 terms. I held elected office way back when. I think it was probably upon the birth of my daughter Liza, and watching Liza grow over these last few years and seeing where the country's headed. Also watching the impeachment hearings on TV, it just kind of tore my heart out, you know. And I had been apolitical for many years. I was the type of person who would be more likely upon walking into a room to shut the TV off than turn it on.
Did the rock lifestyle kind of push you that direction in the rock and roll venue where politics is just somebody else's job?
Well, I mean, the problem, as I saw it, and we'd been asked to donate our services as a band to many, many charitable events. We found out that things like Live Aid, for example, although they did spread the word of something that was ostensibly a good cause, the money never went where it was supposed to go. It took 10 years, even with Bangladesh, that thing that George Harrison did.
Bob Geldorf was crushed when he found out that all the food that they gathered rotted in the docks over.
Yeah, I mean, so our booking agency, Premier Talent, they said, we have a question for you. Do you guys do benefits? And we said no, and they said, well, can you tell us why, in the event that anyone asks why you don't do them if you are asked? And that was the reason. We believed that it was the smaller gestures, the one-on-one sorts of gestures, that really in the end helped more than the big dramatic gestures. We believe that if someone was hurting, if a friend of ours needed an operation, or they couldn't pay the rent, or they couldn't eat, we would have a rent party. We'd bring the band in. We'd get a loft somewhere. Yeah, we'd charge $5 a head, and they would be at the door collecting the money. So that's a one-on-one sort of charitable contribution. Again, as my dad used to tell me, charity begins at home. So we help our families, we empower our families, we help consequently our neighborhoods and our communities, and then our government.
And this is what is termed as a reality-based campaign?
Reality-based in the sense that I'm not going to sit here and offer feel-good platitudes or tell everyone how great things are, because the reality of it is, based on my experience, things aren't that great for everybody. I mean, most of the people I know are working several jobs trying to make ends meet. They don't have enough time to spend with their children, although they'd like to. And you get a situation where, for example, the Bell Atlantic people went on strike. It's called Verizon now. I talked to somebody who worked there, and the guy running the show over there voted himself, or somehow got a $16 million bonus last year, the president or CEO. And they're offering the workers 3% wage increase spread out over 3 years. You know, basically, who's zooming who? So what the campaign's about, what my campaign is about, is real reform. It's about average people like ourselves stepping up to the plate, running for public office, serving honorably and honestly, and then getting out after 2 terms.
This is what Thomas Jefferson envisioned.
Well, I'm not certain about Mr. Jefferson, but this is what Ross Perot, they said it was his gift to the people. I'm not certain who invented that phrase, but basically I am proud and honored to be doing this. I'm putting myself on the line. I'm putting my career at risk based on my points of view and the fact that you're not really supposed to do what I'm doing if you're in the music business.
Have you had much problem with your peers in the entertainment business?
The only problem that I've had with my peers or my peer group in the music industry specifically is that I am pro Second Amendment. I absolutely support the right to bear arms, and they are not as a group basically. So it's very, very difficult to get any sort of campaign contributions from my community or any support within the industry, and that's fine. I mean, I know for a fact that in Hollywood there's a blacklist against people with Republican points of view. Certainly I'll wind up being blacklisted in my industry as well.
Tom Selleck, Bruce Willis,
yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, they have a hard time. I think Arnold plays the field a little bit better, but because of his marriage.
Well, apparently Bruce Willis is also conservative. It depends on how well you're doing at the time. They're not going to say no to anyone who's making them a lot of money.
Sure.
But again, to come up with these, to go public, I should say, with these points of view whereby you support the Second Amendment, which I think is a fundamental right. Everything else hinges on our right to defend ourselves.
Well, we've seen it in other countries. There has never been a registration that hasn't led to confiscation, which ends to a lot of detriment to the life of a lot of people. But let's not belabor that too much, Pat. You're focusing in also on trade issues and the empowerment of the American worker, the American family. Has your travels in the music business helped influence this position, and why? Yeah, more recently than ever, Al. I created something called the Living Room Tour, which was a 50-state tour of folks' homes, backyards, living rooms all across the United States. And I rented a car. I got in the car with my little PA system. I did it by myself, and I logged about 65,000 miles in about 4 months, driving back and forth across the United States. Did you make contacts on the internet? Yeah, it was done solely on the internet. I put up a web page, and the fans responded to it. My friends out there, and they became, in fact, the promoters. So we kind of went the truly alternative route, whereby we didn't use concert promoters who had been in the business at all. We just did it ourselves. It was. Yeah, you were trying to capture the spirit of the early 60s, the folk days, the coffee house days, when people actually put a little bit, well, politics is actually coming back into vogue in rock music too. Unfortunately, people like Goo Goo Dolls seem to be Democratic. Yeah, the Goo Goo Dolls were actually supposed to do a show for me. They're friends of mine who have claimed that I was the main influence on their songwriting, and they disappeared at a certain point. But everyone is entitled to their opinion. I just don't want to be shut down for my opinion. Absolutely not, and not here on Access Television, Pat. Yeah, it's not specifically a radical point of view. It's just it's common sense, is what it is. I do believe it is common sense. I think that how do you feel about the ability to go out there and just to confuse people? Have you noticed that in the political arena, where we want to put as much flack up into the air to cloud the issues? Yeah, the wag the dog scenario. I don't know. There are a lot of political operatives out there who purposely mislead and confuse the issues. For example, I believe that as well-intentioned as this particular event was, and this is not to denigrate those who marched and took part in this, but I think that the Million Mom March was a political event. It was an event designed to support the candidacy of Hillary Clinton. It most certainly appeared that way. I was at that march. And you've got operatives like Rosie O'Donnell, who clearly has a political agenda. Now, we're combining music and politics in the sense that I'm doing a few songs, because that's what I'm known for. People know me from the music end of things, to make them feel comfortable. But when I speak about the issues, I'm serious as a heart attack. I'm not misleading anyone saying that I'm entertaining you, when in fact I'm putting forth a political agenda, like somebody like Rosie O'Donnell. I mean, God bless anybody who can make it in a tremendously difficult business to succeed in. Sure. But let's
be truthful about what we're doing and why we're doing it. Let's not try to call it something other than what it really is.
Well, I've been a Pat DiNizio Smithereens fans for many, many years. I don't know whether your music has been a little bit inside of me and it's vicarious, but whatever it was, I got into the vibe many, many years ago, and I can tell your emotion and your passion in your words and in your music. And how's that for a segue for giving us a few minutes of one of your tunes, Pat? How about
You got a very interesting show here.
Thank you, thank you. I couldn't do it without my best friends and volunteers here.
I'll do a little bit of a song that we wrote in the old days. This was actually on our second album, Green Thoughts. This is called Only a Memory. A few bars, is that?
About 30 seconds or so.
Is filled with thoughts of you. I think about the days of two. I search the room, but you're not there. Your perfume lingers everywhere, but it's only a memory of what our love was going to be. Only a memory, broken bits of you and me. Only a memory. Only a memory. Riff.
Oh, Pat DiNizio from the Smithereens. Wonderful, Pat.
Thank you, Al.
Listen, you characterize your two political opponents, the Democrat John Corzine and Republican Bob Franks, as a choice between, as a choice and a submission. What do you mean by that, Pat?
I get angry when people say that running a third-party campaign is a waste of time. Anytime that you get out there and vote, it's an honor, it's a privilege to vote, to be an American, to be afforded that opportunity. And for anyone to tell anyone else that it's a wasted vote, it's a complete insult to that person. I mean, it's definitely that. Regarding Mr. Franks and Mr. Corzine, I believe that they're flip side of the same golden coin. John Corzine, the former CEO of Goldman Sachs, is a global corporatist. He's a puppet master who is basically going to protect his corporate interests worldwide. His estimated $50 million a year income, his $500 million, retirement fund, or whatever you want to call it. He's the guy that buys and pays for campaigns. He's the guy that finances campaigns for people like Mr. Bob Franks. If you go to commoncause.com on the internet, you'll find out how all of our political candidates, or who actually finances all of our political candidates' campaigns and offices. And Bob Franks, for example, is financed by Big Timber and Big Oil and Wall Street, and that's there. It's right on the website. So what I'm saying, in terms of these guys being the same, they're flip sides of the same golden coin, basically, because you've got one guy who's the puppet master and one guy who's the puppet. And the problem with that is, I mean, only 4% of the population actually contribute to political campaigns. And for example, George Bush's campaign, or GW, for the presidency a while back, he raised $50 million from only 1% of the population. So there's a definite problem. If you've got this amount of people donating a very small percentage, what does the average person who's got $100 to contribute to a campaign feel? They simply don't have enough money to get the attention of the people that they put in office.
Influence.
Yeah.
The word is influence.
Exactly, and that's what the Reform Party stands for. It stands for campaign finance reform, the notion of average people running for office who are not beholden to special interests or PAC money or soft money or corporations. That way you can truly vote the will of the people. You can reflect the will of the people.
Now, our show runs for 28 minutes 30 seconds. If people want to know more, why don't you give us your website there, and the fellows in our control room can flash it up on the screen. So where can people find more information, Pat?
You can find more information about my campaign for U.S. Senate at www.DiNizio2000.org. That's www.DINIZIO2000.org. And I think our phone number at the campaign headquarters is 908-322-1680. That's 908-322-1680. And we're based in Scotch Plains, which is my hometown.
That's great. You've been there for a long time, haven't you?
Yes, I have. I've lived there my whole life.
Now, you're going to be doing some of these tours around the area, and we're going to be have the privilege of having Pat DiNizio, frontman and lead vocalist, songwriter for the Smithereens, coming to the American Legion Hall.
That's true.
Here in Oakland.
Yeah.
On September 16th.
Yeah.
And
hopefully we'll have air conditioning at that event.
We will have air conditioning. We're temporarily out of air conditioning here in the studio tonight, and we're really sweating it up here, but it feels good. Right. It's rock and roll.
Yeah.
Now, what will people in our area who come down to the American Legion Hall on September 16th in Oakland, New Jersey, just off Route 287, what will they see, Pat?
They're basically going to hear me do a few songs and speak about the issues, perhaps more eloquently than I've been able to here today. But I want to talk about what I feel is important. I want to talk about the concerns of New Jerseyans, about the issues that are important to them, and let them know where I come from and who I am and why I'm doing this. And actually, I mean, this campaign is not about doing politics as usual as it's ever been done before. I don't believe that a former rock star or a rock star has ever run for the office of U.S. Senate. I'm certainly the first one. So in a sense, that's historic in and of itself. I don't want to be like certain candidates in this election who are not debating. For example, they won't debate other candidates because it's easier for them to hide behind slick TV commercials. You know, in other words, if they can't be in an environment that they can't buy or control, they're not going to do it. I want to go out there and meet people and shake hands and look them in the eye, and I want them to look at me and really say that I met this person and I have an intuitive feeling about this person that he's the right person for the job.
Everybody on this campaign seems to be stuck on the same issues: prescription drugs, partial birth abortion, and it seems everybody keeps spinning in this one little holding pattern. There seems to be a lot of more weighty matters of, like you said, trade issues, the American culture that seems to be, I don't know, sinking fast and going nowhere. Do you think this is the birth of the third way that they're kind of talking about?
Well, I mean, we got to be concerned about the you know, the expansion of global corporate interest as it affects all of our lives. I mean, I am dead set against NAFTA and GATT. If a corporation here finds out that they can make $1.1 billion instead of $1 billion, they're going to export that industry and those jobs to Mexico or China or somewhere else in the world. And they've got a nice word for it. It's called downsizing. But brother, they're laying people off and people are hurting. You know.
Sure.
I'm not against. How could I put it? I'm for fair trade where there's a level playing ground for everybody. I mean, how can we, in good conscience, do business with China when they're committing human rights atrocities and they're taking every penny of the money we're sending over there and they're putting it into their military? And I believe that their military, in the end, is going to be a threat to us.
Do you think that, as you said about Corzine and Franks being the two wings attached to the same bird, or two sides of the same golden coin?
That's an interesting way of putting it.
Do you
it's
think
a vulture.
Do you think that by supporting China the way it is that we'll all become under an oppressive one world global entity?
I'm not a reactionary, I mean, but
if there was only one, who would come to the rescue?
It seems to be heading that way. There's less and less privacy in our lives. In my hometown of Scotch Plains, there are video cameras at every stoplight. I mean, that was unheard of 10 years ago.
There's talk of a national ID card.
Well, you know, and then national ID card is it's certainly not the first step on the slippery slope. We're already there. I'm concerned about issues of privacy, internet privacy, cyber terrorism. You know, I'm concerned about America. I'm concerned about these issues. There's nothing more important than the sovereignty of the United States of America and individual freedom. And again, it goes back to the Second Amendment. In any totalitarian regime that ever existed, from Hitler to Pol Pot to Stalin, and on and on. The first thing they did was take guns away from law-abiding citizens.
It's very true.
It's about education. It's about good parenting. My dad was a police officer, but he was also a garbage man, as I was for 16 years. He was a caddy. He was a parking lot attendant. He worked 4 jobs, as did my mother, to try to support our family and raise me. And we're lower middle class people from Scotch Plains, and this is why I'm doing this. There are a lot of people still in this boat, you know what I'm saying, that are not, they don't have a voice. How could I put it? I call them the forgotten majority. You hear about the winners, but you never hear about the losers. You know, online trading was all the rage for a while, and so a lot of people lost their shirts, and they quietly stopped the TV commercials. You know, I know somebody that lost $100,000 trading online.
Wow.
You know, it's crazy.
So quite a sum to part with.
Well, they're selling people a bill of goods, selling people things that they don't really need.
Okay, so Pat, what will happen to the Smithereens if you actually win in November?
I can't answer that question. I like to make the joke that I'll take them with me if I win, and I don't know if they really even want to go to Washington. I mean, people say, why do you want to do this anyway? I mean, the whole system is corrupt, and it's because I want to change things. I've got a 6-year-old daughter, and I don't want her growing up in a cesspool, and that's basically why I'm doing it. Call it radical. If that's what it is, that's what it is.
Well, I think our country was started on radical principles. Some of my favorite heroes in America have been extremely radical to change things. And third party, it's been said about the Reform Party that it has never been an idea that has changed America that did not emanate first from a third party.
Well, the Reform Party really does stand for something significant, despite its recent troubles. I am not a fan or a supporter of Pat Buchanan. I kind of go my own way. I was granted that by the Reform Party when I signed on as their candidate for U.S. Senate in New Jersey. Of course, when I came into this, Jesse Ventura was the figurehead or the spearhead of the movement. He had won the gubernatorial race in Minnesota, much to the shock of everybody and delight of quite a few people. True reform, again, is about this being a party of the people and for the people, and it's about average people stepping forward and serving.
Are you getting much attention from the local papers, the Star-Ledger, the Record?
Only from the rock press or the entertainment section. I think that there has been a problem in that the political writers who are tied into a certain scene or a certain group of people don't necessarily believe in the notion of a third-party insurgent's candidacy. I think that they're pretty much and largely ignoring this campaign, so we pretty much have to pull out all the stops in terms of how we're going to promote this thing, and it's a wildly unfunded campaign, you know.
Well, I hope that that people will turn out on the 16th here in our town.
I hope so too.
As our time is coming to a close here, Pat. What would you say to the young people to kind of invigorate them in the last remaining moments that we have here?
I would say this: if my campaign or this vision quest accomplishes anything, it would be to get whoever is watching this, especially the young people, get registered and vote. Whether you vote for me doesn't matter. You don't have to vote for me. If you want to, you can. Find out who the candidates are, find out what the issues are, and you make it your business to get registered and you vote. It's very, very important. There's no greater responsibility and no greater privilege in our country than our right to vote. And if I've accomplished that, if we've gotten a lot of people registered and a lot of people voting, then win, lose, or draw, we've done something.
Very good, Pat. It's been a real great pleasure to have you here in my home here.
Thanks, Sal.
Again, let's do it for September 16th.
You bet.
Saturday, where we're going to get started about 7 o'clock. 7 to 9, I believe, the hall. Yeah. We have the hall. We'd like to see all of our OK TV members out there. We have quite a following here in the area. We absolutely do. We're local. We're local boys, you know, Pat?
You know, it was funny. I did a living room show in Nutley, and these 4 guys walked up to me after the show, and it was very much a fun show. And they kind of poked me in the chest, and they went, you know, hey, Pat. And I said, what? They said, we heard about your campaign. And I said, yeah. And they said, we're going to vote for you. And I said, gee, I'm flattered, but why? They said, because you're one of us. You're from the neighborhood, you never left Jersey, and you care about working people. And they said it, not me, Al.
That's great.
So.
Well, U.S. Senate candidate Pat DiNizio has been our guest, and I want to thank you for giving us your candid perspectives on issues many people in New Jersey share with you. And for those wanting more information about Rock Politics Jersey-style event coming to Oakland September 16th, can visit DiNizio2000.org. And if you have thoughts or comments on our show, please contact us. Our page will be up shortly. We'd like to know how you feel about alternatives. Now I'd like to say thanks to our fabulous crew who always come through and bring our show to your home whenever we have a show. For OK TV Productions, I'm Al DiGiacomo. Thanks for watching Alternatives. And Pat, what do you say pick up that guitar and take us to the end of the show?
Sure, Al, whatever you say.
Win, Pat, win.
What do you want to hear?
It was long ago, seemed like yesterday. Saw you standing in the rain, then I heard you say, want to love but it comes out wrong, want to live but I don't belong. I close my eyes and I see blood and roses, blood and roses, 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 blood and roses.